Hi everyone. In the last video we released, we talked about all the new plants that we got recently. In case you haven't seen it, I'll link that for you. And today we will start to plant all of these plants, or some of them, not all of them. It's too many to do in one day. So we have a really nice weather forecast for today, and we thought we start planting in the area around the house. So this video is about how to plant certain plants. I will tell you a little bit about the plants as well, and also I will give you a few design considerations or run you through some of our considerations, because we will be moving also a few plants that we have to different spots. Now I'll show you what we're going to be planting today, or starting with at least. So we have here 3 Japanese Andromeda. We got loads of them in the garden, and they are found a lot in gardens in Japan also. Those 2 here are called Mountain Fire, and that's because they have these really bright red new tips growing out. And then this one here is called Carnival. This one is a bit more compact growing, and other than the red tips also, you see the leaves are variegated, so they have whitish edges. That's those. We do have one more Japanese Andromeda, this one here. This is one we just took out from a spot where it didn't grow too well, and we'll also be replanting this one today. Then moving on to here we have some Japanese hollies. These are still smaller plants, and we will fill in an area where we have hollies already with those to plant a more in between the other ones we have, because they are quite slow growing, so it takes a while to fill out an area with Japanese hollies. Then we have here 2 Portuguese laurels. We grow them also a lot in our garden, and the reason we grow Portuguese laurel, which isn't necessarily a Japanese garden plant, but we do grow those as a replacement for camellias, because camellias in our climate zone here, we are in a climate zone 6, and we tried growing camellias, but they are just not hardy enough in our zone, unfortunately. And because the Portuguese laurel has a similar leaf color and texture, this is why we use those instead of the Japanese camellia trees. And then we will also be planting this pine. I mentioned on the other video that unfortunately it didn't come with a cultivar name, it just came with the name pine. So I cannot tell you what exactly this is. I was guessing it could be a mugo pine, even though it doesn't look exactly like a mugo pine. So we'll just have to live with that. It is a pine. It's a compact one, so it will stay low and maybe also grow slow. It looks like it, but it has a beautiful brighter green color actually, which is really nice. So with this lot we're gonna get started, and I will start by running you through the first few areas to tell you what we do there, mixing up some soil, and then taking out some other plants that we're replanting in that area, and then placing these plants and then get planting. So the first ones are gonna go in this area. This entire area here is on a quite steep slope. I'm not sure how much you can actually see that on camera. And one reason we wanted to fill this slope out is to hold it back, by the roots that are growing in it. So to hold back the soil and avoid that it starts to crumble and disappear over time. And the other reason is because it's just still we have a hole here which we want to fill, which is not necessarily too nice. This bush, this is a Japanese quince that used to be a lot larger, but I pruned it last year quite a lot, and we will keep it in that shape and size. And another reason is why we're planting those here, because we find that there's a little bit too much color contrast in this area. So you have these, the Japanese quince, there's another one here and another one there with darker green color, and then we have this Japanese Andromeda here which has a lighter green color, almost a yellowish touch. It also needs some fertilizer, and so this one we're going to take out in order to minimize the contrast of green color, and we will be planting those 3 Japanese Andromeda in this area here. And that's because they are coming out in red, and also the quince, you can already see it now, has a slight red touch on the leaves when they're coming out, so this will look nice, we think, all together here as one area. Now this one here and the other one I showed you before will go on this side, because looking down here we have quite a lot of Japanese Andromeda that have a lighter green or almost yellowish green color, and the one from over there, we're going to be taking out together with this one here. They will be planted in this section here. We'll place them later and see how they fit best. That's the plan. Japanese Andromeda need acidic soil. So what I'm going to do here, I will use rhododendron soil for planting. I'll put that in here. And then what I usually do for the Pieris, so for the Japanese Andromeda, is to actually mix it with our own soil. And that's because we have a natural soil pH of about 5, which is slightly acidic. So I do not need to plant it in rhododendron soil only. So this is why I will mix that here in the wheelbarrow. So I just mixed it through with my hands. I think that works best. And then if you look here closer, this gives a really nice mix of soil. So you see the brownish, the lighter one was from us, and then the darker one is the rhododendron soil. So I will start by taking this one out, and we actually just discussed in the break that we're going to be taking out this one here as well. So let's start with that. I always try to be generous when taking out plants. I mean, they are smaller plants, so what you take out doesn't have to be too big. You see, it lifts up quite easily. So the root isn't that big. Okay, and then I have a bucket here to put that in for now. And then I just leave that soil in, and the other one. It's a bit tricky to work on the slope always.
Whilst you're digging, can you explain why it is that now and then we do move some plants, years later?
Yes, so sometimes we cannot find all the plants we are really looking for. That's one reason. The other reason is that sometimes plants are just getting too big over time. We do prune most of our plants, but it's just once in a while we think a plant fits better in a different spot, actually looking at the entire picture. Also, once in a while a plant dies. This happens, I guess it's the same for everyone, because they are just not right for the position, or they just do not like it there. So we accept this. This one is really well rooted, by the way.
But also the garden evolves over time, doesn't it?
That's true as well, yes.
What was good at one point and felt right at the start, once the garden matures,
exactly. So the
things change a bit.
Keeps changing, that's right, that's also a reason. So it's not that we do this a lot, really. It's occasionally. I don't think we have actually moved plants in a long time, or not to that amount that we're doing here today and over the next few days. All right. Okay, so that's this one here. I'll put that in with this one. Okay, now next, before I dig any new holes, let's position those. First of all, apologies from my side, because I was telling you before that those two are mountain fire, which is correct for this one here. This is a mountain fire, and I actually just noticed, because of the sticker on the pot, this is a forest flame. So those two cultivars, if you have a look, are very, very similar, almost impossible to distinguish. If you look at the leaf size, this is almost the same here. They come out, the new one's a little bit smaller, but you see shape and color, and also the red. This one is a little bit darker for the very young shoots. You see here it gets brighter as well, but this, I suppose you could say, it's more like a brownish red, and this one is really a bright red. So it's actually a very good example to see the difference, because they are very, very similar cultivars. So here we go, mountain fire and forest flame. Okay, now let's place them. Okay, I'll just start this one here and one maybe here. Can't really stand them up on the slope, I'll just leave it here for now. So we do not want to place anything in straight lines. In Japanese gardening styles, the planting should look random. So pretty like in nature really. It is after all an interpretation of nature, or one way to see it. And if we put this one here, so it's easier when it's flat to do that. Let me get this out of the way. And then, right, now we'll step back and have a look. Hope this is not gonna fall over. Okay, so this is also important when placing plants, to step back, have a look, and also consider the different viewing angles you're going to have. So here we're on our terrace here, so we're looking down into the garden. So these plants I'm actually just going to be looking at from this angle, or coming from here, or coming from behind you, really walking past. So I'm not going to see them from down there. So Adam, what do you think? Yes? Okay, thumbs up. That's very good. So let's plant them here. I may actually move this one a little bit closer to here, because that Japanese quince I want to keep pretty much to the size as it is now. This one, as I said, will also stay in pretty much that size. But then considering that the Japanese Andromeda can actually grow to a proper bush size if you let them. They can be pruned, but they can grow to up to 3 meters or 10 feet actually. So this is quite a big bush. And considering that they're gonna be wider as well, the width is typically up to 2 meters, that's about 7 feet. So we want that all the plants have enough space. This is one kind of thing that sometimes is not considered enough, and we did that too at the beginning. You buy relatively young and small plants, plant everywhere, but then over the next years they get bigger and bigger, and actually you run out of space. So that's also a reason why sometimes we transplant the plants, because simply they just don't have enough space, and we don't want to prune them, or not to that extent, so they would fit in their gap and space again. Okay, now looking back again, I think this is good. Those two are in, and now we're doing the last one. So that's the Carnival. Get it out of the pot. Okay. That's good. So I usually check first after I've done the hole if the hole is deep enough for the plant and wide enough, and you can see here that there's plenty of space to fill more soil in. Also, it's deep enough. When planting on a slope like this, you can see that here, of course, the hole is, or the soil level is higher than it is here, and I usually try to find the middle ground, so that's about the same you see here in the middle. So this is how I plant on steep slopes like that. And then I will loosen up the roots a little bit at the top and also at the bottom, which automatically fills in some new dirt from the plant. And then before I actually plant it, I'll fill in some dirt at the bottom, and I'm gonna use that pot for it because my bucket is full. So Japanese Andromedas, they grow in zones 5 to 9. We are in a zone 6, and when I talk about the hardiness zones in my videos, I always refer to the USDA hardiness zones, because different countries have different hardiness zones per country, but I find that the USDA ones are actually quite common and used worldwide anyway. Right, slipping here, that's better. So first a little bit at the bottom, and I usually fill in a bit more at the bottom and push it to the sides. So when planting on these slopes, I always try to build up the slope again at the front here. And this is sometimes a little tricky also with finding your grip when standing on the slope or kneeling on the slope. And I make sure, especially here, that I really push that down so that the soil doesn't start rolling away. Also, like, rain has to be considered. And usually this works quite well. Occasionally in those positions you'll have to refill that little bit here because the soil will wash down a little bit, but that's not a big deal as long as you keep an eye on it. So let me get some more soil. Okay, now I'm done with filling that one in. And what I do at the end, and I usually talk about that in all my planting videos, is to put some soil that is already around the plant on top of the new soil. That way it stays moist here for us because we have a loam type of soil, and also it looks as if it had always been in that spot here, so you can't really see that it has just been planted. Okay, then we're done with those. Now let's move on to the next ones. Now we're on the other side of the terrace and on that part of the slope. And we have those 3 that we dug out beforehand, which we're going to be planting here. So I'm going to go down here, and the reason we have this like pathway here, or an area where there's no plants, is it was, first of all, it was by chance really, and also we left it empty because when we have to water the entire garden, this is our like runway for the hose. We have a 3/4 of an inch hose, which is very thick and gets very heavy when it's full with water, and we go from our water supply, like behind you, all the way over the terrace and down here to reach that part of the garden. But we will still be able to manage once these plants are in. It's just this area here looks very empty and we want to get some plants in. So here we have, this is a star magnolia, and also this one here, and they are pruned and they will stay in the size how they are now, so we're not going to let them grow any bigger. Here we have more Japanese Andromeda, and these are the ones that have more a yellowish color. So this is a variegated one, and those are also, they have a lighter green down here. So now let me try to place the plants. See how we're doing that. So we want to put one probably here in that little gap, and the other 2 somewhere here along the way. This is a smaller one. I would actually suggest to put that one maybe here. Please stay. Okay, I have to put it like that for now. And then we have this one here. We'll need a lot of soil going down there, and also this one here is going down there. So, right, I think this is the largest one we have. I place it like so for now, it doesn't stand up. And then if we put the other one maybe here. What do you think, Adam? Maybe like that.
Come this way a tiny bit.
To you.
So you can get the hose in between. To me more. Yep.
Yeah.
About there.
And maybe a little bit close here. Well, okay, if we put it here, that can work. Okay. Right, and here we still have a little bit of a gap here. We may want to get another one, or maybe just actually leave that open. We don't want to put plants everywhere, so we want to have some empty space as well. So you think that looks nice from up there?
Yeah.
Yes? Okay, good. Then let's get planting. And for Japanese Andromeda, other than the soil being acidic, you should have or use well-draining, nutrient-rich soil as well. This is what they really like. Also, it's important to water them regularly, so they should not dry out really. And regarding the location in the garden, we grow them in full sun and we grow them in partial shade. Sometimes you also read they can be grown in shade. I have not tried that. I did, however, make the experience from growing them that partial shade I find works best. Full sun works, but if it gets too hot in that spot, they are not 100% happy really. So I would recommend a partial shade position for those. This is the second Portuguese laurel that we'll show you planting. The other one is already done. And just a few words to it, this laurel grows in zone 6 to 9 and it's happy in any normal type of soil, really any type of normal pH range of soil, so very easy to grow. It grows quite vigorously here where we are in zone 6. The new growth is up to 50 centimeters, that's approximately 2 feet or a bit under 2 feet per year. It's very good for pruning, so we prune all our Portuguese laurels and it's a really nice evergreen shrub. And here we're planting it because you can see the fence in the back and this is quite an empty area and we're planting it here as a screen. So when I started planting that, I turned the plant around because the backside looks kind of bare and we don't want to see that. And this is perfect for growing towards the fence. And the front is the nice side, which we can see because the only viewing direction is from your perspective. So we're done with this one and now going for a little break and then moving on to the Japanese hollies. Now we're on to the Japanese hollies, and those are smaller plants and are perfect to fill in some of the gaps we have here on this slope. So we have, except for this white blooming azalea, all the other plants here are Japanese hollies, and basically what we want to do is just fill in some of the empty spaces we have there. Over there in the background blooming you can see Japanese skimia. We got 4 of those back there, and all the rest is just the Japanese hollies. Now these hollies grow in zones 6 to 8. Soil requirements and soil pH is all in a normal range, so it's not too specific really. Also the soil you're planting it with, you can just use a normal gardening soil. You could also use rhododendron soil, it doesn't really matter so much with those. And they are slow growing, don't forget about that. So we had those for years and we prune them just once in a while really, because they just grow bit by bit every year. Good, then let's get started. I'll get the plants and I'll place them first and then we'll see how it fits. Okay, so we quickly place them. We have 2 down here to fill out that area and move a little bit further in with the hollies under the maple. Then we have 3 right here. So 3 that fills in that space. We got 1 up there and 1 just behind me in between the skimmias. So now we're going to be planting them. Regarding the location, so they grow from full sun to partial shade. Those here have shade most of the day. Actually, they get some sun in the morning and then in the later afternoon. From my experience, I find they grow better in partial shade than in full sun. But again, you know, the climate is different everywhere. So for us, a partial shade works best. So on previous planting videos, you always saw me putting the root balls into a bucket of water first before planting. And this time actually I'm not doing it because the soil is very, very wet and moist because we had so much rain recently. And also these plants, they came from the nursery, they're watered. I watered them also last night actually, so they're completely soaked and wet, and this is why this time I'm not doing it. Normally I always recommend doing it if the plant you're planting is dry or if the soil you're planting in is very dry, because you didn't have that much rain, especially for plants like Japanese azaleas that have very thin and fine roots. There it's very important to keep them moist. So this time it's okay. Regarding water requirements for the Japanese hollies, they should also be kept moist. That's important, they shouldn't really dry out. So if it doesn't rain enough, make sure you water them in case you're planting them. We're done planting the Japanese hollies. Now this entire area is filled out nicely. This one we had placed there before at the very bottom didn't fit in because of the roots. So we couldn't dig in deep enough, so we left this one, it will go somewhere else. And now we're on to the very last plant for this video, which is the pine. Last plant for today is this pine here. We're gonna place it right here because we have a spot of soil here. You see moss is starting to grow, so I'm gonna take that off before I plant. We both don't remember anymore what was in there. We used to have some other plant in there a while ago. Anyway, we're gonna be putting this one here, and I'm just checking where exactly. I think this looks quite nice, so it can grow a little bit into the pathway. And so it's not too close to the black pine here. Now normally pines, they prefer a full sun position. This one here will be a little bit shaded out, but you will get some sun later on, so that should be okay there. And yeah, I think that's quite nice. What do you think, Adam?
Yeah, I think that looks
good.
Nice there.
Then
we just keep it low.
Exactly, then let's go for it. First taking off the moss, just like this. So this is just the top soil layer, this bit as well. And I'll just put that moss underneath here actually for now. A little bit more there. So pines can be planted in pretty much any type of soil, really. They're not very complicated plants. Also the same is valid regarding the soil pH, so any normal range will be fine. They should, however, have a well-draining soil, preferably a bit of sand can be mixed in the soil so that they do not stand in wet feet all the time. That's really the only point to consider with pines. And location, as I mentioned, they should have full sun preferably, but this one with partial shade will also be okay. Right, and that looks very good. I think there's a little bit missing here. Wonderful, and then that means we're done for today, which brings us also to the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching and see you next time. Bye.